Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today to testify. Let me start with Ms. Draper. And by the way, it's always nice to have you here, and I always love it when I see the Medical College of Virginia listed in your bio. Great school, yes, ma'am. The DISH metric for qualifying DISH hospitals is an inpatient measurement, yet 340B is for outpatient drugs. So does it make sense for us to use an inpatient metric for an outpatient program?
Well, we do believe that that's one of the weaknesses of the DISH measure. The other is that the formula is based on covered patients, and that would be those covered by Medicare and Medicaid. So, there are weaknesses inherent in that measure.
That's just another one of the many things that many stones y'all have turned over and said, whoops, we can't see anything there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what is the DISH threshold? Do you know?
Well, it ranges for different hospital types. For some hospitals, it's 8%, the DISH adjustment, and for others, like the general DISH hospitals, it's 11.75%. So that is another issue of whether or not that's an appropriate level or not. And again, that's been pretty consistent over time with the program. So, whether that needs to be reassessed, that would also be a question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Captain Pedley, earlier Ms. Draper referenced that prior to the shift or the change, there were 1,300, and if I get the numbers wrong, y'all correct me, 1,300 contract pharmacies with the various entities or hospitals, and now there are 19,000, if I wrote it down correctly when you said that earlier. I got all kinds of complicated questions on that I've been given, but why the great expansion in the number of contract pharmacies? Is it just because we lifted the cap of one, or how did that happen?
The 340B statute is silent on how these covered entities dispense and get these drugs to their patients. We had understood that through state law, entities were contracting with pharmacies. So in recognition of that, we did develop guidance in 2010 that stated if they were going to have these contract pharmacies, they needed to ensure they were also complying with the statutory requirements of diversion and duplicate discounts. And we audit that information on those contract pharmacies when we go in to audit a covered entity.
All right, I'm going to get to that in a second, but I've also heard that the contract pharmacies are not only allowed to charge a dispensing fee, but some of them ask for part of the savings on the drug. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
I don't have the information on that. That's a business matter between the parties and
but it's not prohibited.
Their contract. It is not prohibited.
Okay. Now, let's get back to the audits. You've asked the hospitals to do the audits of the contracting pharmacies. When you go in and you check on those, obviously you don't have enough people to check on 19,000 individual contracts with the various providers to the various entities. So have you uncovered problems? And if you do you suspend somebody? Do you suspend a pharmacy, or do you suspend the entity if they're not doing the proper oversight of the contracting pharmacies?
So we have audited now over 800 covered entities, but it doesn't stop there. We also do conduct the audits within those of their contract pharmacies. So we've audited over 18,000 contract pharmacy arrangements related to those audits. We do ensure that the covered entity is providing oversight. We sample 340B drugs dispensed from those pharmacies to ensure that they have not been diverted or have a duplicate discount. And if we do find the entity is not providing oversight of those contract pharmacies, we'll remove the pharmacies from the program.
All right, now that raises an interesting issue. If you've done the audits and you've touched on 18,000 contract pharmacies, those audits didn't reveal to you if some of them were getting a split of the savings with the entity?
That's a matter outside of our authority, so we don't review it when we audit them.
Okay. Would you like to have that authority? I mean, as long as we're going in to look at this and it looks like it's a bipartisan way, should we give you that authority as well?
We would be happy to work with Congress on a specific proposal.
I appreciate that very much. Yes, ma'am. All right. I might be the last one up. I've got about 40 seconds left. Anybody have something that they really want?
I do.
I yield to the gentleman from Georgia. Oh, okay. I'll yield to the gentleman from Georgia, though.
Dr. Pedley,